Got my hair out. Okay. Okie dokie. So I'll just wait for a few of us to join, and then I'll get started. Well, what I intend to talk about is not just the dimensions and the basics of them, but how they affect us practically, how they're linked into us and our energy. Because for me, it is all about the healing. It's all about the spiritual journey. It's all about expansion and all the rest of it. So yeah, I don't just give the fluff. I give the fluff, and hopefully why we need to know the fluff. The other thing that would be really great is if you guys could ask questions as we go, in case I don't explain things the right way, or you want to know more information about something and to me something seems really obvious. I will likely be channeling information at some point, so if I don't check it, it may well be that I'm channeling it. In which case I may well get the answer to your questions through anyway, without realizing it. Okay, so the dimensions. I'd like to start by just saying we are amazing beings. Human beings are absolutely top-notch, some of the best beings in the whole, not just the galaxy, the whole universe. And I think a lot of us who are spiritual have kind of been given the impression over time, or have the attitude that either being in spirit is much better, or that actually we're the cruddy ones left in the universe who are holding the whole dimensional layers down, and the universe can't ascend because of us. Yeah, we are, Nick. Yeah. That nothing could be further from the truth. So if you've heard stuff about humans holding back the universe, and we're not, we're holding ourselves back. No one else, nothing else. The only people that any of us ever hold back is us, and that's for the individual. So when we look at the dimensions, what we realize is that we're pretty awesome multidimensional beings. We are multidimensional beings in a way that most other beings are not multidimensional, because we exist in so many different dimensional planes. So I'm going to start with dimension 1, the first dimension. Okay, and it isn't, if anyone's watched Inside Out, it isn't a single pencil line. Basically, it is the kind of like real basic being. It's the physical. And each dimension, as I go through, you'll see they are linked into one of our chakras, one of the original traditional chakras, and they are linked into our auras, the layers of our auras. So those of you that might know some stuff know that we have at least 7 layers to our aura. We are capable of going through 7 dimensions, something which most other beings will struggle to do in the way that we do it. Some other beings might be able to do 10 dimensions. None of them are physical. We can do it physically and energetically. So the very first layer is the physical layer. It is the real earthy stuff. It connects completely into our root. It is the first chakra that really we start exploring and understanding from birth. So that's linked into our root. Beings which solely exist within the first dimension are awesome ones like crystals. And even, you know, I truly believe that crystals are beings, and they work with me awesomely. They love working with me because I love working with them. Tesla thought it was true, so it must be true, and I know it to be true. So there are beings that exist within the first dimension. The most awesome of those are crystals, and they work on us through the first dimension. They're kind of like this first dimensional awesome energy filter. So if we're working with earth energy, we all know that energy has got no intent unless we give it intent. And quite often when we work with Reiki, because it's coming from above, it's coming from the intent, through the intent of the universe and of the higher beings. When we start working with first dimensional energy and the lower energies, we don't often have those filters. We have to use our own filters. Let's face it, some of our own filters can be pretty cruddy. So rather than thinking about, you know, if I manifest and if I get more, I would also love everyone else to manifest and get more. If all of us were just amazing, abundant human beings, wouldn't that be wonderful? But we tend to think, no, I want more than that person, or I want what that person's got, or just think solely about themselves. And crystals actually are a filter. They're a being and they are a filter through which, so if you do any sort of manifestation work, crystals are really, really amazing to use because they are that filter when we're really credited with them. Other beings that exist solely within the first dimensional beings are some creatures like bacteria, single cell amoebas in general. I think plankton probably fall into that. But when you think about how these beings work, a single cell amoeba, bacteria, a virus, although they are single cell, they replicate and reproduce, and they end up with as a hive being, which is much bigger. That hive being grows on and attaches in our own bodies on the physical layer into our physical illnesses. It's a physical manifestation of energetic illnesses still. So it might be there's a cold come around and you get it, and actually you get over it pretty quickly. It might be hanging around for weeks, and that's because that energetic being is hooked into you on the physical energetic layer. And those of us that might find we have issues with shifting illnesses might also find we have illnesses with other first dimensional issues such as money, family, relationships, houses. And remember, when I say family, I'm talking about your soul tribe. I'm talking about your soul group. I'm talking about the family that you make and you create. It doesn't have to be your bloodline. So the first dimension is straight into our root, and it's the one that we work on most as a child, and it holds most of our childhood issues. If you have trouble grounding, look to your childhood and your childhood issues, belief systems that are there that are preventing you from grounding. You may need to do some healing around your root. Also, if you're having trouble manifesting, it's the same thing. It's all in your root. So you need to go back to maybe belief systems that were set in childhood, or belief systems you may have brought through with you from previous lives, where spiritual people just exist up in the spiritual realms. No, you don't. You exist. Can you hear all this? This is, although it's all stuff vibrating at different levels, and that stuff will vibrating at different levels, but it makes us think that it's harder, or it feels harder to us, or softer, or liquid, or it's just gas. Because at the moment, my hands are floating through oxygen and nitrogen. It's all still there. On a first dimensional level, I am touching stuff now. It doesn't feel like it, but I am. So, oh God, I completely lost my train of thought there. So if anyone can rejig me on that, that would be great. I think I was trying to make some really awesome point. Hey, Caroline. So we come through with those spiritual beliefs that we shouldn't have money, that we are spiritual beings and we shouldn't be physical, we shouldn't own things. You know, it's wrong, and it isn't necessarily that it's wrong to own or it's wrong to want to have a comfortable lifestyle. We're here to thrive, not just survive. What's wrong is the focus and the concentration on money. What does money bring you? What does the material bring you? I want comfort, I want security. Okay, focus on your comfort and your security. Don't worry about the money. You will get your comfort and security if you focus on that. If you're focusing on money, you're not going to get what you need. You're just going to get money problems. Whether that's having too much money, and so having that issue where people just want to use you for money, or having no money. You need to focus on the end result, not on not on what you think the money's bringing you. That's a thing. Okay, so that's the first dimension. Awesome crystals and amoebas, I think plankton. Okay, so second dimension. The second dimension, we're coming up on our own self into something which is called the emotional layer. And this is the second layer of the aura. So this is all to do with the emotional. These are beings which have emotional connections. Okay, they may not have the cognitive thinking connections that we have, but they've certainly got the instinct, the gut instinct. They work off gut instinct. They work off their emotions. So we're looking in the sort of second dimension at beings like a lot of insects. Okay, so insects quite complicated creatures individually. You think about their hives, you think about an ant, you think about a bee. It's that connection into each other, that instinct, them just knowing how to work together. They're second dimensional beings, okay? The queen of the second dimensional beings is spiders. So if you have an issue with spiders, sort it out. Spiders are the guardians of the second dimension. They're unbelievable, brilliant creatures, okay? Which is why witches always have them in their houses, because they know their stuff. My excuse for not dusting, I want to keep my spider up in its cobweb. Managed to get my husband to a point where he doesn't crush spiders, which is obviously a really manly way of painting spiders. So these beings exist through their emotional connections to each other, okay? They love each other and they exist within the hive based on pure love, pure connection. So, you know, even termites and like gross little things like that, all of them are just these amazing second dimensional beings who exist solely in love, okay? Solely in emotion. So we know we also have emotions. We also exist in that dimension. Ta-da. Okay, so third dimension. The third dimension is still physical. The third dimension is still emotional. The third dimension also has mental capacity, which is us, and many amazing creatures on the planet. Those of you that are kind of, you know, into your animals, you know that they're in many cases brighter than us. Okay, in many cases brighter than us. Certainly creatures such as dolphins, whales, elephants, even giraffes have an amazing inherent old knowledge. Sea turtles, that type of thing. Manta rays, yeah, they have got this amazing knowledge. Highly intelligent, highly emotional creatures as well. So it's not just us, it's them as well. They're these amazing creatures. In this layer, the more that we can learn at the moment of other species and the way that they behave, the more we can remember who we are. At the moment, and I'll explain it to you a bit more in a bit of detail as we go on, we're fourth, maybe fifth dimensional beings at push. We're not using our full capacity. Our full capacity is the 7 dimensions. My personal belief is creatures such as dolphins certainly will be able to traverse the whole 7 dimensions, okay? So it's about this cognitive understanding the intellect, understanding that our mental pathways, our habits, our behaviors, our mindsets, our belief systems contribute to everything. Understanding how they affect our emotions, how stuff will give us anxiety because we've got a mindset in a certain area which we need to unblock. And seeing the natural way that most animals behave, they don't have the issues that we do because they don't have those restrictive mindsets, they don't have those belief systems which are completely useless. Okay. Just checking. Hi, Angela. Hey, Katie. So what else? So yeah, learn off the animals. We are basically not evolving, we're regressing, we're devolving. We're becoming the creatures we were originally meant to be. When we're talking about the Garden of Eden, we're talking about all of that type of thing. That is possible. It is absolutely possible for us to exist as we were originally meant to exist. And the planet is currently at this turning point which is that actually if we just keep going and keep plugging away, we're at a point where we can turn the planet around. It's been some time since we've been able to do that, and a lot of that is the West's disassociation with their spiritual pathway, and a lot of that unfortunately was down to the church getting in the middle ground. The connection direct up or direct into the earth was taken away. You had to go through the church to connect to God, and God forbid that you would want to connect into animals. They've got no soul. God forbid you would want to connect into the earth, and that is all to do with money making, unfortunately. And if anyone's studied Martin Luther, the German original Protestant protest, then you'll understand where the church was at that time and how much influence it had over the whole of the Western world, we're still coming out of the other side of that. Okay, so somebody like Martin Luther actually was a massive pivot. That was the 1500s. That was the 1500s, and we're still coming out of that. So, you know, this is a massive time for us to expand and for us to move forward. And as we expand and we move forward, those of us that's spiritually aware, we're bringing others with us. Somebody said to me recently there was a massive wave that came through in 2012. I don't know if any of you really either got a spur on or came into your journey very, very quickly after 2012. There was another episode like that around Christmas time. So how many of us felt that shift towards the end of last year where you thought, I dealt with it, or oh my God, all this just finished? There was a massive shift out with the getting rid of a load of old belief systems, a load of fear-based stuff that we no longer need has completely shifted out. So there is a major reset going on in the third dimension at the moment, going on in our mindsets. This is all down to our mindsets. This is down to us focusing on actually what matters, focusing on the love, focusing on the joy, not focusing on the money. Money doesn't bring us love. The connections. Empaths previously being told to step away, and actually spiritual people need to be told to step forward, to step into communities, to show your sensitivity. How else are people going to learn to be sensitive if we hide away and squirrel away and think, oh God, somebody's going to say something to me, I'm not going to know what to say back? Absolutely. Do that healing on yourself first and foremost. If you don't do that healing on yourself first and foremost, you're not going to be able to help others in the way that you need to. But don't do it because you want to help others. Do it because you love yourself and because you're this awesome multidimensional being who absolutely deserves that. Okay. So, third dimension, massive shifts going on in the third dimension. When people talk about ascension and they talk about all of these things, we're not going to leave the third dimension. That isn't going to happen. We're still going to be physical beings. Okay, we're still going to be physical beings. The reason why it's pretty awesome being a physical being is because you're physical. Okay, when we start getting into the fourth dimension, no physicality. Okay, this is the part of us that exists as spirit. So when we pass, and we are still very much attached to our earthly form, we pass over into the fourth dimension. Okay, so this is the spiritual layer. This is the spiritual body. This is the white part of the aura that we often see when there's a few of us gathered together. Okay, so it's pretty awesome being a human. You get to do things like eat. Eating's fun. Yeah, we've just had a new moon in Taurus. I'm a Taurian. Yeah, we like eating. Okay, we like sex. And we like physical stuff. I like pretty things. And I don't mean I like pink fluffy things. I mean, I like, you know, goof stuff like that, because that, oh my God, yeah, that, oh Jesus, you should have seen when I saw that on eBay. I was having that. I was having that. You know, the physical is amazing. When we become spirit, and that's all we are is spirit, we'll miss all of that. We miss the physical hugging. We miss the sex. We miss the sunshine, heat on our face. We miss splashing in the water. We miss hearing the sound of laughter. It's not the same, okay? So enjoy and love being the awesome human being you are, because when you completely pass over, you are just in the fourth dimension, okay? You miss out on layers 1, 2, and 3. Bam, they're gone. It means that you can reach up higher. Don't get me wrong, but this stuff's fun. That's why we came. We do actually enjoy this stuff, really, even if we pretend we don't. So, just checking for comments. Jane started her journey after Christmas. See, just goes to show there's this massive shift at Christmas. Thank you for saying that, because that's really solidified in that for me now. Okay, so in the spirit dimension, what happens when too many of us pass into the fourth dimension and don't pass up into the higher dimensions after we've passed, because we didn't ever get into the fifth dimension as a human being? And I'll explain what the fifth dimension is in a second. It's fascinating. That many of us, when we pass, or our loved ones, when they pass, are still too, and I don't want to say too attached to their physical being. they can ascend up to the high levels and come back whenever they want and reattach into the physical, which is why as a medium, I know that I can speak to somebody who's been dead several hundred years. They are also reincarnated because there's still a bit of them that's around that I can connect into. And they can bring themselves back down into the fourth dimension for us to communicate with, them to show what it was like, what their life was like here. They've let go of that life. In fact, we're not interested in that life anymore. We're off doing much fancier things. But they can come back and bring a huge amount of wisdom, especially if you've got some really beautiful, big beings, as they would be now. But you're thinking about people, if whether or not you believe Jesus is the Son of God is up to you. But if you recognize Jesus as an ascended master, or you recognize Buddha as an ascended master as opposed to a deity, these are the people who can bring themselves back down so that they can appear to us in their physical form. Okay. If people don't move up the layers into the fifth, biggest reason for that is fear. It can cause issues, and it is causing issues. So where many of us have been told, it's witchy, doing all this juju magic stuff is witchy and bad, and actually it's not. The reason why many of us are drawn to this work, who have got gifts, who are spiritually connected, is because we need to move people forward from the fourth and up. The reason why a lot of them don't move on from the fourth is because they're really, really grounded. They don't want to move up into the fifth because they're really worried that they've done something they're going to get judged for. We know there is no judgment. That's what the fifth dimension is, baby. No judgment, no right and wrong. It doesn't exist. Good and evil, all of those dynamics that we think we have here don't exist. And we do think we have them. We think we have them. When you gain the understanding on a very deep level, to the point where it's not controlling your actions, that there is no right and wrong. You might have your own morals. That may not be something that you want to do, but you don't judge that person for that. You just go, do you know what? Actually, I just don't want to hang out with you anymore. I don't want you in my inner circle. I want to move away from you. And that's cool. It's cool not to want somebody in your inner circle. Hey, Claire. Because there is no right and there is no wrong. Doesn't mean that it's sometimes people's behavior is okay, because we're still in the third dimension. We're still physical beings. We're still individuals. We're not yet living as a hive. We're not living back as we should be in terms of the hive heart, in terms of the hive mind, which you would get with those second dimensional creatures. So, okay, it's just a reminder, we need to connect into those second dimensional creatures. So if you don't like insects, you kind of have to deal with that. And learn from them, learn from their ways, because they've got so much wisdom to give us that we're killing them off. Problem with bees at the moment, just going to kill all of us. So when we're going from the fourth into the fifth, we're losing that right and wrong. So many people don't want to pass up because they don't want to be judged. So there's a massive issue with people who've killed themselves. Now I'm, chatting to my guides, because what else am I going to do? How else do I function? Can't stay mad on for long. Right, so when we're passing up into that fifth dimension, there is no right and wrong. There is no negative and positive experiences. It's about stepping back and looking at stuff with perspective. So some of us might have blocks in our third eye to do with perspective, okay? But this comes in, so the spirit layer is connected into your heart, into your fourth chakra. Third layer is connected into your solar plexus, okay? When you're then coming up into your throat, this is the fifth dimension, okay? The fifth dimension is, and the fifth layer of our aura is all rooted into here. It's all rooted into our throat, okay? So as we learn to speak from a place of truth, a place of wisdom, moving away from the spiritual, which is really sad, and it's devastating because they're following our lead. So we need to get ourselves in gear. But it is tough because, you know, when you look at somebody like Buddha's life, Buddha was a monk who had all these wonderful teachings about balance and all of this wonderful stuff about having balance and no extremes in life, and is quite right. But he was surrounded by other monks. He was surrounded by people who listened to him. He was surrounded by people who supported him, and he was surrounded by people who felt the same as him. Okay, they were all spiritual people who would sit and they would meditate and they would look at the world through this love. And you think about the way a monastery works, it's the what I was saying is that Buddha lived in this hive. He lived with others who were enlightened like him. Okay. When you're looking at somebody, some of us living in the West and going through our spiritual journey in the West, and maybe being in gatherings, hey Jane, I can see Claire's logged on as well. When we look at the spiritual journey that many of us have, and that many of us feel quite alone often, and it's only when we're gathered, either in situations like this, yeah, video does only work in the third. That's quite true. Thanks for that, Spirit. Bloody universe. So when we then come out of this chat and we speak to somebody who really isn't functioning in the same place that we are, it can be really hard, because, you know, they'll be worrying about, well, why have you given all that money to somebody, and why have you bothered doing that, and why have you done that for them, and they're taking the mickey out of you. And some of the brilliant advice you sometimes get, or you actually get people who are taking the mickey out of you. They're not spiritual people, they're not necessarily enlightened people, they're people who want to use you for money. You also get spiritual and enlightened people who aren't conscious of where they are, and they're beautiful people to be. But it might be that, you know, you're working with a load of people who really can't function past the fourth dimension. We're all the way up to the fourth dimension, all of us, because we exist as spirit. You know that. Okay. You know, it's those of us that don't exist past the fourth and into the fifth that a lot of us will really struggle with. Okay. And I was doing some reading recently, and it came up about how Jesus lived in that situation, that Jesus as a teacher went out and taught. The evidence is there that his family rejected him. You know, his father, who we see as Joseph, and I was raised Catholic, so I was raised to see Joseph as his stepfather. He wasn't his real dad, because God was his real dad. But when you think about the actual disjointedness that was there, his mother clearly there at his death, so clearly having that connection with his mum, and his brothers, a couple of his brothers were out preaching with him. He had very little physical support. He was under pressure from his own religious hierarchy, not to rock the boat. These are people who were afraid. They were living under, they were slaves. They were living under a Roman dictatorship. You know, these Roman conquerors who'd come in and assimilated the Jewish people, and the Jewish hierarchy were fearful. So they were worried about him rocking the boat. They were worried about him doing too much political stuff, which was a major aspect of his work. And then you had the Romans, who, as long as they kind of kept themselves quiet, were really happy to allow them to feel that they had a certain amount of freedom. Once you start getting outside of that, that was a problem. Okay, so he had it in terms of everyday people and in terms of two hierarchical systems. So when we think about other figures who would have really struggled like we do, Jesus for me is really one of those figures who would have really struggled with existing in the fifth, sixth and seventh dimensions, but also existing in the third and fourth. Okay, because it would have been a struggle. They still needed money to survive, even though he obviously really preached about letting go of the physical and letting go of the material focus. They were still bankrolled mostly by women, actually. And all of those everyday strains still must have been there. But he had faith. He always had faith. And I think if any of you know your Bible stories, the one time that he had a massive issue was in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he knew he was going to die. It's that gift of sight, and knowing, which is, you know, it can be a curse at times. You know, it does feel like a curse. And he was obviously going through one of those situations where he felt like this was a curse. I'm going to die. It's going to be really painful. I know what I'm here to do. I know why I'm here to do that. But all of his friends fell asleep. The one time he needed them, they all fell asleep. And he was royally peed off with them. And absolutely he should have been. Because there are times when you need to say to people, I needed you to be there for me, and you weren't. I needed you. All I wanted was one night. I've done so much for you. Look at what I've done for you. That one night when I needed you, you couldn't be there. So it's okay for us, even existing in the fifth dimension, knowing there is no right and wrong, knowing that, you know, that there is no judgment, as in Judgment Day, knowing that, you know, life is just full of experiences rather than lessons. Knowing all of that, we still have to exist in the third and fourth dimensions. So dealing with people who aren't quite there. So you do have to say things sometimes, you know. So those of us that are functioning in this place, you do have to speak your truth, because other people still need that guidance. It doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter where I go, there are still those basic intrinsic lessons whether I go to a church service, whether I do a talk somewhere, those basic intrinsic lessons which we all need to hold on to, and we all need to we need to learn. So what I'm talking about is people going from the fourth. When I say learn, from the fourth to the fifth, those experiences, those mind-blowing experiences. Okay, so we're getting into the fifth dimension now. In the fifth dimension, there is no right and wrong. There is no judgment. Everyone's existing in this great big hippy dippy love fest. You know, like in the 60s and 70s, where everything is cool and everything's cool and everything's schmool. Oh yeah, okay, remember that song. So we're existing in this place where there is no right and wrong. Okay, you can do that as a human being. So you can exist in the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. Okay, you can still have your own morals. You can still know that somebody's morals don't match your morals, and that person may not be somebody you want to hang out with. That's cool. Doesn't mean you're judging them for it. Still love them as they are and accept them as they are. Okay. You then looking to go out to the sixth and seventh layers of the aura. So the sixth and seventh layers, the sixth layer is connected in up here. I mean, when we're looking at dimensional beings who are in the fifth, quite many of us will be in the fifth and existing in the fifth as human beings now. Okay. So when we got starting to get out to the fifth, sorry, out to the sixth, what we're really looking at is this. For me, this is more about speaking from a place above. Okay, now when I go on about the 7th, you're going to see that the 7th is a theme on this. Okay, so the 6th, we are looking at the 5th, we are looking, sorry, the 6th, we are looking at taking in wisdom with the perspective of the universe. Okay, so we're getting closer to the universe. Okay, being able to speak through the wisdom of the universe and give the wisdom of the universe. So being able to then layer up our humanity and what our humanity needs to speak with the wisdom from the universe. Okay, so it's a really, really useful tool to have, that wisdom from the universe. For me, it's a channeling. For me, it's where a lot of our channeled dreams, and those of us that lucid dream, where you can control your dream, where, you know, you might go, oh, right, I'm sat here having a chat with Uncle so-and-so. He's definitely dead. And it's a very conscious chat. Or you're sat there having a chat and you're like, okay, yeah, you're not who you say you are. You know, I had Lady Amethyst, Angel Amethyst, who works with Violet Flame through, like for my Violet Flame attunement. She came through as somebody I knew, and she was talking to me, and I was like, this is really, like, I was very conscious of this conversation, and the conversation was really weird. And in the end, she said, no, I'm Lady Amethyst. I know, she wasn't insulted, it was fine. But Lady Amethyst, yeah, came through, had a nice old conversation with me. And she come through because I was doing the Violet Flame attunement the next day. So there's a difference between dreams, which are very in the 4th and 3rd dimension, trying to give us messages. Most of our dreams in the 3rd and 4th dimension will be trying to give us subconscious messages to get us into the 5th. What mindsets are you lot still carrying? And your subconscious is trying to tell them in a language that you will understand. So your dreams in the 3rd and 4th dimensions are going to generally be dreams which are messages for your own healing, that your subconscious is trying to get through to you and you won't listen to, okay? Or you don't want to listen to, or you haven't dealt with yet because it's too freaking scary, okay? So most of them will be like, for example, a lot of my dreams, I know what different areas in this made up town that's in my head mean. There's a beach, there's a sea, there's certain streets, there's places with lots of roundabouts in, there's really messed up shopping centres, loads of corridors, and scary escalators, okay? Those are my message dreams, okay? We'll all have those dreams. And it's because I probably haven't been doing enough meditating, etc. And I'm not picking up self-healing, and I'm not picking up what I need to pick up on. Okay. When we start moving outside of that and we start having lucid dreams, or we're having, you know, these fab conversations with celestial beings, I quite often have them with Noel Fielding, and he said to me the other day, I can't keep on hanging out and doing this with you. I was like, oh really? Oh, it made me really sad. Yeah, and if any of you like Noel Fielding, you'll probably appreciate that he is kind of on another dimension. Those conversations, those full-on lucid conversations that we have, okay, those will be our dreams. The other thing will be when we're channeling. So channeling is to do with energy coming in. Tends to come in around here, depending on what it is. So we're channeling in that information, okay? We're channeling in the wisdom of the universe. We're seeing things from the universe's perspective. So it's easier for us to get our head around cruddy periods in our life. We'll find the small stuff slips away. Don't know if you notice, but that's the sort of stuff which kids find a little bit easier than us. Yes, kids are more awesome beings than us. If you're looking to learn, it's not just the animals you need to look at, it's kids. So kids will be like, oh, why does that matter? And why does this matter? And why are you worrying about this? Let's just, you know, run around the garden in the sprinkler on our pants. You know, they've got it. They're in the right direction. So it's that perspective that many of us have had as children, and we lose it. Many of us lose it when we have to take responsibility for others, and for some of us that's younger than others. A lot of us, and that's genetic stuff, that's genetic pre-programming, that this is how you survive and this is how you get you continue the species. Yeah. So many of us, that will kick in when we start taking responsibility for others, which is why a lot of women will find pregnancy so difficult, because the hormones will basically supercharge all of those mindsets that we're maybe phasing ourselves out of. Your genetics is going, no, 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 you need to worry about providing. You need to worry about money. You need to worry about a roof over your head, because this is how we've survived. You need to worry about food. You need to worry about all of this stuff. And actually, there's a part of me going, no, 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 no. So, you know, there's that whole conflict. So I found it really easy to do a lot of this stuff before I had kids. And I had kids and the genetic stuff kicked in. And then for the last few years, I've been working the hell out of getting out of that. And it's been a struggle. It's been a real struggle. Okay, but it's meant that rather than the connection which I had before children, say being up here, it's now at a much higher level, because I've done much deeper work. So I know myself better. Knowing yourself better, you can reach higher. The more work you do on yourself, the more personal expansion you do. You're not here to help others, you're here to personally expand, learn from your experiences. The more you go up. Doesn't mean you can't help others on your way. I like doing that, it's fun. But understand where your focus lies. Yeah. Because, you know, you're going to be getting to a point where if you're supposed to be helping and guiding others, that if you've got yourself this high and you're still not doing your work, you're not going to be able to help people on the next part of their journey. You're just not going to be able to help people on the next part of their journey, because you haven't done the work of yourself. You'll find people moving away from you because you haven't done the work on yourself. Okay. I mean, you know, if you think, why have I lost all of my friends? Nobody wants to come work with me. Nobody wants to teach with me. It's because you're not doing the stuff in yourself, and all your students are moving past you, which is what you actually want. You do want your students to move past you. You can say that wholeheartedly and bona fide. You know, I hope that, you know, every single person I work with fucking blows me out of the water. Make me so happy. But if you don't do the work on yourself, you're not going to find that you've got anything to offer people. Okay. Seventh dimension. So peak of our abilities. The seventh dimension is the peak, the epitome, the pinnacle of where we can reach. Okay. So seventh dimension. Okay. This comes into the seventh layer of our aura, which I think is a etheric. I'll tell you them all in a minute, the different names of the aura. This comes into our crown. Now, you may think that this is an even deeper connection into the universe. This is an even deeper connection into oneness and whole. No, because that was here. This. It's a deeper connection into you. How the hell do you do that? I've got this, I've got my base. How is this a deeper connection to me? Seventh dimension is our higher self. Okay, the seventh dimension is this angelic version of yourself. It is a bit of yourself which exists where no time and space exists. So all beings who are seventh dimensional, so talk about all the angelics, all exist in the seventh dimension. Okay, so you'll get some gods and goddesses, as we would see them, who exist up in the seventh. You might find some who are in the fifth and sixth. You'll find some ETs and aliens, if you're into that shizzle, in not necessarily in the third anymore, but in the fourth and fifth dimensions. There will be some in the third, but they're not going to be at high enough space to connect into us spiritually. Okay, they're going to be going through the same rubbish as us, just like a million miles away, more than that. You know what I'm saying? A gazillion trillion light speeds. Thinking about Star Trek. Yeah. So in the seventh dimension, we're connecting into our higher selves. Your crown is your connection into spirit, yes, but it's your connection into you, your divine wisdom, okay? This part of yourself that has been everything you ever have been and everything you ever will be. And time and space don't exist. So it can absolutely exist in the same time and space as you, okay? It's not you existing in the same time and space as that. No, it doesn't work that way. It exists in the same time and space as you. We are restricted by time. Even though it galls me, you know, I've got Irish heritage. You know, 10 minutes late, that's on time. Come on. Time and space don't exist up in the 7th dimension. Okay. The angelic beings and the angelic version of yourself. What you may not realize is that you are an incarnate version of some really awesome angelic beings. The reason why, you know, Michael, Raphael, all these other amazing beings can appear to as many people as they need to. You can call on them as often as you want, but don't get fed up much. Michael might tell you off if you're just being a little bit paranoid. Raphael's really nice. He don't do that shit. Is that time and space doesn't exist. Hey, just imagine that being able to appear whenever you want. It's going to do this, it's going to do that. Shazam, you know, just like that. That's what it's like in the 7th dimension. Okay, so time and space doesn't exist, so they can appear to as many people as many times as they want. The energy is huge. They have got lifetimes worth of experience within them, incarnate lifetimes worth of experience within them. Okay, these beings are only as awesome as they are because of the lives we are leading now in the 3rd dimension. Okay, only because of the lives we are leading now in the 3rd dimension. Okay, they won't exist as they are. We are helping ourselves. Okay, these are the ascended versions of ourselves coming back to help us. These are the guardians of the universe who have been there since before time and will be there afterwards. Okay, you know, you'll know somebody resonates and is an aspect of Metatron because they're nerdy as hell. They may be into their crystals. Trust that anybody. They may be developing technology and understanding energy. You know, Stephen Hawking, in a way that we've got no idea. We just went, where'd you get that from? I don't even understand that. And if you do that, yeah, still don't get it. Okay. So a lot of scientists and equally a lot of people on what we class as autistic spectrums resonate with Metatron. Okay. Many healers will come through from Raphael, for example. Okay. Many warriors and defenders and, you know, the political antagonists who tie themselves to trees on top of Winchester Hill, God bless them, to stop it being carved in two. Might have a little bit of Michael in there. You think about these angelic beings, we are versions of them. This is why I'm telling you we are such awesome beings, okay? We literally just need to connect into that 7th dimensional version of ourselves. We don't need to be conscious of it. We don't need to know who we are. All we need to do is to take that wisdom in, okay? All we need to do is to recognize our own divinity, recognize that Godhead within us, okay? Recognize and love ourselves in the same way that we do these angelic beings. When you start doing that, when you start really loving yourself and making decisions like always, it's always a perfect example, getting up in the morning and drinking a glass of water, because actually there's something in me which really dislikes drinking water. I don't know where it comes from. I've tried the ancestral line, I've tried previous lives, I've tried childhood. Jesus knows where it's from. Or maybe Jesus does know where it's from. Making a decision to drink a glass of water in the morning, despite the fact that I don't like doing it, means that later on I feel better during the day. Switching generally to decaf because it makes me feel less stressed out. I notice it now when I have a decaf. Trying to physically love my body, my post-baby blobby body, which, to be quite honest, it really isn't what it was when I was 16. Okay, I wish I realised then how hot I was. But it's okay. You know what? It's okay. I actually got myself a size 16 dress today. That would have been unheard of. I would have picked up the 14 and squeezed into it, even though it was uncomfortable, because I was putting that much emphasis on my physical being. Okay, so moving out of the self-sabotage and moving into the self-love realm, okay, is the biggest thing that you can do to connect into your 7th dimensional self. Self-love, treating this body as sacred, being mindful of what you're putting in it. You can have your party, don't get me wrong, we are still 3rd dimensional beings. Being conscious of who you're having sex with. That doesn't mean that I don't think everyone should be sleeping around, because you know what? The more you do it, the less stressed out you are, the more fun it is, the more manifestation you will do, all of that awesome stuff, the more connections you get with people, but you are connecting. So being conscious, if somebody's a dickhead, pardon my French, if somebody's a knob, why are you sleeping with them? Yeah? Self-love is to turn around and say, do you know what, I'm better than you, I'm better than that. Okay? I took my mum turning around to me once when I was about 26 and 27 and saying that to me about someone. I didn't raise you to be with people like that. You deserve better. And that's important. That's really important. So making these mindful decisions because you love yourself, okay? That's the key to it. That's the key to your full expansion, okay? And I'm not going to say it's a particularly easy journey, because it's not, but that's what we signed up for. Okay, we knew that before we came. We still made the stupid decision to come here. But it is all about self-love. The more you love yourself, the more you're going to connect into this amazing version of yourself, which knew what it was the second you were born, and knew what you were before you were born. You just need to remember. You just need to remember. Okay. So those are the 7th dimensions. What I'll do is I'll tell you the 7 layers of the aura that you'll probably find in most places. So the physical layer is generally called the etheric layer. The 2nd layer is strangely called the emotional layer. The 3rd layer is the mental. The 4th is the astral body. The 5th is the etheric template layer. And it is kind of, the other thing that's worth noting is that in the 5th dimension, it's where you're kind of making changes to the reason why you came to the earth, making changes to your life plan, making changes to a lot of DNA-based stuff in the 5th dimension when you're doing 5th dimensional work. Okay. 6th is called the celestial body, and the 7th is called the etheric template. So I'm just going to check questions. There are dimensions past that, most obviously. Because as it goes up, you're losing more and more of the individual, and you're gaining more and more of the fly. So it's just a little fly. You're losing the individual, and you're gaining the whole. You're gaining the oneness. Okay, up at that level. And we do work on a whole. At this level, we work on a whole. We don't work on oneness. We work as a whole. When you get up there, you're working more on oneness. It gets to a point where it is an expression of the divine masculine and divine feminine in all its glory, and then it is complete wholeness, complete oneness. Okay, as these layers go up, there is then beyond the oneness, beyond the wholeness. Okay, so the whole split itself in 2, masculine and feminine. It just reflects inward and outward. Okay, think about those 2 things. Masculine aspects of a personality. I'm not talking about men. I'm talking about masculine aspects or doing aspects. We are all a balance of masculine and feminine. Okay, so these doing outward aspects, these inward feminine aspects, balance each other out. And we all know that positive and negative neutrons attract. Okay, that's how you get your whole, right? Those two things split in two, and then those two things split up. It is basically every time the masculine sperm and the feminine egg come together, those two halves of the whole, those two half cells, they're useless. They're useless alone. When those two halves come together, you're reenacting the birth of the universe. You're reenacting with every birth that splitting of the whole into the masculine and the feminine. Those two things come together, and there's creation straight out of it. Division, that cell division. So you imagine coming down from the whole, the masculine and the feminine, and then that divides out, and it divides out, and it divides out, and it divides out. Okay? Make no mistake, the world is overpopulated at the moment for a reason. Think about all the amazing potential for mind expansion that's going on at the moment. Okay? The universe is expanding at an exponential rate. Okay? And we're part of that. The universe is expanding at an exponential rate. All of those people experiencing, understanding things. Yeah? Okay. Right, I'm going to look for questions because apparently that's it, because they've just switched me off. Nikki said, that's what I love about six-dimensional communication. You know that you're there because there is no feeling of being offended. No care for names, labels, or issues. Absolutely. Absolutely. The communication is just what it is. It can sometimes feel quite analytical. You're quite far away from your emotional level. Yeah, think about what your emotional layer is. It can feel quite analytical. And I often go into that space when I'm dealing with clients, partly because I have to understand it and take it apart and analyze it, but also emotionally, I am a very strong empath, and that can really impact me. So it's also serves me as well as the client to do that. Okay. No feeling. We love no feeling, Nick. There's a ton of musical film referencing. That's what life is. Nikki and I often talk about the fact that actually there's so much in books, there's so much in film because it's been channeled. The information has been channeled, and it all come in at different points in order to give us the understanding that we need to into the mass consciousness. So the mass consciousness will be like, the Matrix, oh my God, that's mind-blowing. That's what we're living in, baby. Jane has asked what she says is a stupid question. The only stupid question is the one that asked. What is the best way for me to work out where I'm supposed to be going? Where is my life path? Hope this makes sense. Okay, don't focus on the what, focus on the feeling. I think, Jane, you may have been interested in the emotional manifestation course that I've got coming up in next month with vision boarding. The reason why I've put that out there is because I really want to, and I want to make it affordable, is because I really want people to be focusing on their life path in the right way. You're focusing on the feeling. That feeling is what's going to get you there. The detail will work itself out. You've got to focus on the feeling that you want. And that feeling is the authentic part of your soul. It isn't the soul that has got your mom's belief systems and your dad's belief systems and your teacher's belief systems and you know, ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends belief systems. It's that authentic part of yourself. So the more you concentrate on that emotion, that pure authentic emotion, mindset, being, sense of being, the more your life will just go bing, 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 and just work its way out. Okay, makes absolute